Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ensuring the Quality of Online Hybrid Courses. My name is Tim Leister. I'm here with Ken Zimmerman, and we want to welcome you to our portion of the Accelerated Learning series that we're hosting here at IU 13.
So I am Ken Zimmerman, and I serve as the Supervisor of Educational Technology in the Instructional Services Department at Lancaster, Lebanon, IU 13.
I'm an Instructional Technology Specialist here at IU 13. I manage and facilitate the Instructional Media Services Division, along with working with Ken on LLVS and many of our educational technologies.
So it's a pleasure to be with you here this afternoon. And just to give you some background a bit with our Accelerated Learning virtual webinar series that we're doing. So this session itself is part of a series of webinars from Lancaster, Lebanon, IU 13 that's facilitating in order to really provide responsive and high quality focused professional learning experiences, highlighting practical and actionable strategies for accelerated learning. So our focus is looking at accelerated learning. So all of the topics and content within this particular session, as well as all the other ones, are a result of the feedback that we've received from our IU 13 member districts and the evolving research and data on pandemic recovery, as well as from the Pennsylvania Department of Education guidance and our statewide PAIU network expertise. So the resources that we have for you you have a link to be able to access those resources, and within the slide deck, we're going to share them for you as well and make sure that you have access to them. So that's not only the slide deck, but it's also the resources that we're sharing from within the slide deck. So you are already familiar that there are 4 components to the Accelerated Learning series. So if you want to switch, high quality academics, supportive learning environments, healthy systems conditions, and a system of scaffolding supports. So out of those, we're looking at the supportive learning environment. So what are we talking about with there? The purpose of this component is to ensure that we're providing a safe and inclusive space for learning, forming positive and supportive relationships, and supporting learners and staff mentally and socially recover. From the health systems conditions, the healthy systems component focuses on engaging a diverse group of stakeholders within your education community. And the system of scaffold supports, which this webinar is tied to, as well as the component providing a continuum of evidence-based academic, behavioral, social, and emotional supports aligned with student needs. And then of course we have high quality academics. The purpose of the high quality academics component is to define the instructional changes needed and foster a culture of data-informed decision-making to ensure that every learner has success to the instructional strategies and access to the instructional strategies, materials, and the supports needed to engage with master grade level content. So these are the 4 main components, and we are going to be highlighting the Accelerated Learning Toolkit that the Pennsylvania Department of Education has also provided. In order to get started, we want to be clear with how this particular webinar ties into the Accelerated Learning series. So the Pennsylvania Department of Education provided a toolkit for us that really takes a look at the technology learning goal, particularly in looking at maintaining effective and fluid instructional models, the development of the internal systems and structures, and utilizing quality instructional technology to enhance instruction learning across virtual, hybrid, and in-person models. So with that being said, we're really focusing on ensuring high quality instruction and structures built in your online and hybrid systems. So we have a webinar materials resources link that we'll put in the chat for you to be able to access. And we'll go ahead and click on that for a moment that you can see. Everything that we're going to be sharing with you today is from this webinars resources, and we just put the link in the chat for you to be able to access. So this is what the resource is, and then we give you a little bit of an application of that resource. So just to start out with that, we want to highlight the PD Accelerated Learning one. Page 37 particularly refers to the technology goals, focus, and resources. And that's the one that we're really going to be focusing on throughout the next 45 minutes of this webinar. So the key actions that we really want to be able to focus on, particularly for today, is you'll notice that planning and determining a consistent set of technology tools is one, to develop a process and timeline to address technology device improvement, maintenance, and updates is another, and creating system-wide technology standards for virtual, hybrid, and in-person delivery. So as you see, the stars, the red stars indicate the particular actions that we're going to be talking about here this afternoon. So really looking at some of the professional learning plans to effectively teach and engage with students, using technology to provide voice and choice, going to that system-wide technology standards for virtual and hybrid, creating a set of expectations to build efficient and positive learning environment, and finally, to develop guidelines for attendance, pacing, work completion, extensions, and submissions. Those are all the real key actions that we're focusing on for the next few minutes here. So what we would like to do for you is try to have a little bit of fun. So what we want to do is show you some resources that you can utilize and that you can access. And we're going to ask for your engagement on these resources simply in the chat. So for example, when you take a look at this next slide, you're going to see that we're going to look at what's in maroon and red. So we're going to look at the PD Accelerated Learning, the National Standards for Quality Online Learning, Quality Matters, the Distance Learning Collaborative, the Rubric for Assessing Interactive Qualities of Distance Courses, and WCAG 3.0. Those are 6 different resources. And we're going to just go through some of these resources for you that you can then have access to be able to refer back to be able to look at as you're planning and you're supporting your district's online and hybrid strategies for online learning. And as you're assessing the quality, these support systems are available for you to be able to use. So they're 1 through 6. What we're going to do is ask you a question like this one. Which resource provides support for the following? And notice in this case, we're asking for assessment of social rapport building, instructional designs for interaction, interactive technology resources, evidence of learner engagement, and evidence of instructor engagement. So what do you think? Look at the list on the right of the 6 items. Which one of these do you think has to deal with assessment of these particular areas? And in the chat, we would like for you to just enter a number for the one that you think corresponds to this assessment of. So the number that corresponds, if you think it's the PD Accelerated Learning, you would enter number 1 in the chat. We'll just give you a moment or so to enter the chat, just enter a number of which one you think it goes with. All right, so as we take a look at this, as we're looking at the assessment, you'll notice that, go ahead and click on the slide, you'll notice the one that comes out is the rubric for assessing interactive qualities of distance courses. So great job, that was unanimous. So what we want you to do is look at this rubric for a moment. So we're going to open it up and we'll put it in the chat for you to be able to access. And the exciting thing about this rubric is it's really looking at levels of engagement. So the rubric for assessing the interactive qualities. And you know, these interactive qualities can go beyond just what's the online content. So when we talk about delivering and engaging online content, hybrid content, and even remote content, we can use this. So it really focuses on the elements. So the social rapport building designs for interaction, to the instructional designs for interaction, what would be considered low, medium, moderate, above average and high. The interactivity of tech resources, and there I want you to notice, so what's the two-way exchanges of text, information, and the visual technologies? How are they engaging learners this way? Element 4 is evidence of learner engagement. And again, you're looking to, are they all participating, not participating? Man, we had everybody participate in the chat right now. So we had high level of engagement for that question. And then element 5, the evidence of instructor engagement. So we sometimes really focus a lot on the learner when we're talking about engagement. And we want to remember, what are the instructors actually doing to be able to really get high levels of engagement with their learners? So feedback, how often are they providing feedback? How much feedback are they providing along the way? What we like with this rubric is that this rubric gives us some elements to be able to take a look at when we're trying to really rate the overall quality of interactive distance learning courses. So whether you say distance, whether you say virtual, whether you say remote, or even now hybrid or concurrent, we're really talking about how can we assess the interactive quality. So this is a great resource that PDE has provided for us to be able to utilize to look at a rubric of the different levels of engagement. From there, we want to be able to move on to the next resource that we want you to take a look at.
All right, thanks, Ken. So the next resource, again, you're going to see on the right-hand side, the list hasn't changed. You see the same numbers, 1 through 6. So we're going to ask you the same thing here, asking you to type in the chat a number between 1 and 6. Which resource on the right provides support for the following? It has 3 sets of standards for online courses, online programs, and online teaching. So we'll give you a second. Think through, put in the chat. And it looks like most of you got that as well. The national standards for quality online learning. So often you're going to hear this NSQ for short, and the resource that we have for you here just takes you out to the NSQ website. What we like about the NSQ website is not only do they have standards for online teaching courses, but it also has for entire programs as well. So these standards that have been developed by a group of 3 different organizations, the DLC, the Distance Learning Collaborative, QM, which is Quality Matters, and VLLA. So these 3 are all useful for thinking about how you deliver online content, both with the courses themselves, your entire virtual program, if you have one within your district, and also how your teachers are delivering that content. So we're going to come back to online courses a little bit more specifically, but I want to look at the online teaching one, especially right now. Because for many of our teachers, they may be asked right now to be delivering online content and teaching in a virtual environment that they've never had to do before. So a lot of them are learning on the fly, learning what works and what doesn't work. Many of them haven't had formal training in delivering online content and creating interactivity and engagement with students. So when you're thinking about, do you have virtual teachers at your district, or even are you using virtual teachers? How do you evaluate their effectiveness? The current rubrics that we use for our classrooms don't necessarily apply to quality online teaching. But taking a look at these might give you some ideas as to how you might do that. So for example, standard D is about learner engagement. Well, learner engagement can look a little bit different in the classroom versus online. So when we think about some of these different standards, you can use them in your conversations with your teachers and not necessarily formally evaluating them. But if they want to know, how do I know if I'm doing a good job in delivering online content, working with my virtual students? This could be a framework for them just to see, am I hitting some of these different things? So for example, D1, The online teacher uses digital tools to identify patterns in learner engagement and performance that will inform improvements to achieve individual learner growth. So that's a mouthful, but the explanations and the examples here might be helpful in understanding what that is. So are they using the LMS's tools to their highest quality? Are they using them effectively? And some of these different examples, no matter what online content you have, each one has its own learning management system and dashboard that they can use to improve that. So we won't go through the entire list, but I just want you to see that these standards are just here for online teaching. When we look at the standards for the program itself, if you have your own virtual academy or you're using some sort of third-party virtual academy, you can start to kind of gauge the effectiveness of that by looking through some of these different items as well. So if you're looking at the curriculum or course design of your entire program, these standards might give you a little bit of an insight as into what that is. So a great resource can be a little bit overwhelming. We won't have time to go through it today, but I'd welcome you to go through each of these just to get an idea as to, what are these national standards that have been adopted by these high quality organizations and are new. So it's not something that's a little more outdated. As Ken mentioned, distance learning used to be the term. We've more moved to the online learning space, and a lot of those rubrics have now been updated in ways that can be a little bit more useful to you. All right, let's go on to the next one.
All right, is everybody ready?
All right, so we went through that. Here we go. Next question. Which resource provides support for the following? This is a framework to assess the quality of online course design for elementary, middle, and high school. We ask you to put that in the chat. Again, a number between 1 and 6. All right, well done. That is Quality Matters.
Good job.
Very good. So we mentioned Quality Matters when we were talking about the NSQ resources, but let's dive into Quality Matters just a little bit more. So Quality Matters is a national organization that has really took off in the last 2 years because of the needs of not only K through 12 school districts, but also higher ed. So Quality Matters was born out of higher ed to look at quality online courses, but has also developed into the K-12 space as well. So when you look at their website, you're going to see many different resources for both higher ed, K-12, and also continuing education. But you're also going to see resources for developing online courses, but also evaluating those that have already been developed. So if you use specific vendors to provide your online courses, there's a publisher rubric in here as well. But a lot of folks are starting to enter into their own space and looking at their own online courses as they've started to develop more digital resources at their school. So the K-12 course design rubric can be great for looking at all the different aspects of an online course when you have to develop it for a larger audience. So I'm going to take a look over here at the K-12 standards just to give you an overview of the entire rubric. And again, it's highly extensive, very detailed, and you'll notice that it places them in different categories. So when we look at the course overview instruction of an online course, we're looking for these different items. What I like about the Quality Matters rubric is it assigns a point value to them as well. Some of these are essential to any good online course. Some of them are somewhat of a luxury to make sure they have there. So when you see the point value, the higher the point value, the more essential that it is. You'll also notice under each of these, next to each number, you'll see a T and a C. That indicates whether it applies to a course template or to the course content. So many school districts are starting to develop their own course templates that contain a lot of these items that have the T associated with it. For example, 1.6, standards of academic integrity are clearly stated. Well, you probably already have those for each of your districts, and those are very clearly stated and should be included in any online course that you're developing as well. So that's something that goes across no matter what course it is, whether it's an 11th grade biology course or a 7th grade ELA course. Those standards should be very clear and they should be consistent, and that can be part of the individual templates. So again, we could spend the entire time looking through just this individual rubric, but we have an activity for you to do. So on our next slide here, this is where we're going to need your participation. Okay, we have a little sample of an online course. This is a sociology course. It's a high school course that was created from Michigan Virtual Schools. So what we would like you to do is click on the link in the chat, and we would like you to apply this individual standard. So this can take a little bit of time. We're going to give you 5-7 minutes or so to look through the course and specifically apply standard 5.2C. So standard 5.2C from the K-12 rubric is learning activities provide opportunities for learner content interaction that support active learning. So again, unpack that standard a little bit. Learning activities provide opportunities for learner content interaction that support active learning. So again, as you look into that course, if you could open up that window, click on that link, and we'll keep that standard up there. We're going to ask you to take a little bit of time here to look over the online course, and you can navigate through. Again, it's just a small portion of the overall course. But over here on the left-hand side are the different pages of this unit that you can navigate through. You can watch the videos. You don't have to watch the entire videos. Maybe just get a quick glance as to what it is. And then there's navigations at the bottom where you can go forward and backwards. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and actually pause the recording a little bit, give you some time to work. So those of you that are watching the recording, we'll be back in just a minute. And if you have any questions on what we're asking you to do, please feel free to ask or post them in the chat. Here again is the standard that we're looking at. 5.2C, learning activities provide opportunities for learner content interaction that support active learning. All right, everybody, welcome back. Hopefully you had an opportunity to take a look at the Michigan Virtual course. And again, here is the rubric standard 5.2C that we are looking at. All right, so as you went through the course, I'd be curious here as to what you thought about that particular standard. In order to help you with that, I'm going to bring across the actual rubric itself, which we can't provide the entire rubric for you because it's proprietary, but we can look at this example here of 5.2C. The annotations within the rubric really provide a little more of an example and description of what these things mean. So for example, the first line in there, engaging by doing something, such as discovering, processing, or applying concepts and information. So you see the point value there is 3. This is considered a very important standard within this. The standard also talks about some examples and even gives some examples for blended courses, not just online courses. So I'd be curious, just on a scale, again, with your limited knowledge, from 0 to 3, how do you feel this course met this particular standard? Again, only the unit that you saw in here. So if you could in the chat, put a number between 0 and 3, how you thought this standard applied to this sociology course. And again, with any rubric, this is always a little bit subjective. We're always a little bit unsure as to how it follows through with this, one of the things I really enjoy about Quality Matters is they offer lots of professional development on how to apply this rubric. So if you like the tools that are in the rubric, or you think, you know what, this could be something that we could apply to our team who's developing these courses, Quality Matters offers a very short course that your teachers, administrators can go through that does similar to what we're doing right now. Talks about the rationale behind the rubric, provides you with real world examples, and asks your team to apply the rating to these examples so you can get an understanding as to how the rubric was developed and also the differences between the evaluators within the rubric. So a lot of you have between perhaps a 2 and a 3. Why I think it adds the interactivity is because of some of the different review processes that are in here. Okay, so for example, and maybe you didn't get to all of the different aspects of it, but this little embedding of an interactive tool that allows the students to click on the answers as they go through it can be real helpful in kind of setting them on the different path to whether or not they understand the individual lesson. So there's a quiz built right in here where students can click on the answer. It provides them that immediate feedback whether or not they knew the question was right or the question was wrong. So it gives them that review, gives them a little bit of interactivity. You never have the full interactivity that you might in a full face-to-face or blended course, but just the checks for understanding and the ability for them to input information at different aspects of the lesson is why I think it would be rated fairly high. It also has some drag and drop opportunities for them to check for their different activities. So these are types of things that professional courses have that sometimes are very difficult when we develop these courses with just our teachers who are posting resources for their students. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that activity. Again, it just gives you a quick little snapshot into an online course and how that one standard for the Quality Matters 5th edition rubric can be applied to it. When you look at all those standards, you could probably see it can be a daunting task to meet all of those different standards for online courses that districts are starting to develop. All right, but I think we're ready to move on.
So we hope that you see how these resources interconnect with each other and support each other. So from the resources that the Pennsylvania Department of Education through their Accelerated Learning Toolkit have provided are a perfect complement with some of these other resources that we're showing you, particularly within Quality Matters and the rubric for evaluating online courses, as well as the instruction of those online courses. So let's get ready for the next resource, guess. So which resource provides support for the following? So here we're talking accessibility considerations when creating, editing, and reviewing online courses. So take a moment in the chat to put the number that corresponds with the correct resource. Again, accessibility considerations. Yeah, Ben is quick.
He is quick.
All right, so as we take a look at this, you got it, number 6, the WCAG 3.0. Now there's variations of WCAG, and some say WCAG, and some say WCAG, and some say WCAG. Doesn't matter what you call it. What's important to know is that there's a resource that gives us accessibility, support, and guidelines for when we're creating online courses. This is the same type of resource that we would use for when we're evaluating websites. So back in the day, before we were doing online courses, many of us had like teacher web pages, and we would access these teacher web pages, and we would put files on these teacher web pages for students to be able to access, and they needed to be WCAG compliant as well. So what we want you to notice with this compliance, and we'll put the link in the chat for you, is that there's guidelines that we need to consider for all different aspects when we're creating these courses. So what's the type of text that we're using? What are the words we're using with the text? When we have images, what alt text are we adding on images? What's the contrast that we need to be paying attention to for the size of the text, the color of the text? What's the uniformity of the text that's needed? There's all kinds of different things that we really need to be considering when we're talking about accessibility. So think accessibility for text, think accessibility for images, and think accessibility for videos. And there's also different conformance levels of those accessibility features that we need to build in. Now, third-party content providers have to follow WCAG compliance, so they have these things automatically built in their courses. But if we have teachers creating their own online courses and they're delivering them as in your district cyber academy, they need to be WCAG compliant as well. So we need to help teachers understand what's some uniformity around text, what are some stipulations that we need to have around images and use of images, and what are some stipulations that we need to have around videos for closed captioning. So this WCAG gives you the full point 3.0 scale to take a look at, and it goes very in depth. Do you want to be bronze level, silver level, gold level when you're looking at that accessibility? But what we wanted to do for you is kind of put this together a little bit in a checklist form. So we're going to go back to our deck for a minute. And in our deck on the next slide, and remember we provided this slide deck link as a resource for you in the chat that you would be able to access this. On this slide, there's two resources for you. The first one is an accessibility course by Dr. Chris Smith. Dr. Chris Smith has provided this resource for anybody to use who has access to the internet. And he's done a lot of work with Quality Matters. He's done a lot of workshops and presentations in Quality Matters. But this is an all-encompassing course that you can take on accessibility and that you could provide for your teachers to take on accessibility. And it really goes through, you know, how should you format text? What should you do with hyperlinks? How do you add alternative and embedded text? What do you do when you create tables? And what are some accessibility features within video and audio in particular? So this is a really good resource that you would be able to access, and just take that link, bank it, and it'd be something that I would definitely have teachers go through before they build courses so they can be aware of accessibility features that need to be in courses. Or if you have a tech integrator supporting your teachers, the tech integrator could take the course and help summarize and provide some checklists for teachers when you create a shell of what's going to be the recommended LMS course shell that teachers would be creating, whether you're creating in Canvas or Schoology or Desire to Learn or Infinity Campus, whatever your LMS is that you might be using. You need to really figure out what are those accessibility components in that LMS. Back on the slide deck, we also provided for you a sample accessibility checklist. Take a moment to click on that accessibility checklist, and we'll put the link in the chat for you as well. Now, this is aligned with 2.0. 2.0 and 3.0 are not vastly different, but I wanted you to be able to see that there's different grade levels, and that's what's more important here. So as you scroll through this gives you the highlights of accessibility. And if you keep scrolling through, notice there's different levels, A, AA, and AAA, which corresponds in WCAG 3.0 to the gold, silver, and bronze level. Scroll to level A. And when you look at the level A checklist, and we'll scroll a little bit, not to make you sick here, as we get down to the level A, stopping on this page. The level A checklist is 2 pages that you can use as a way to be able to review the quality of a course that's been created. And this helps you look at, does it provide text alternatives for non-text content? And what we would encourage you to do is actually download this to Adobe. So when you open it up in Adobe, the pass-fail is activated and the complete checkboxes are activated as well. What I like about this checklist is it's hyperlinked to the section to learn more about. So providing captions for videos and audio, if you click on the captions link, it's going to take you to the resource to explain what it means for these captions and what you need to do to enable captions. And so this is just a great way to be able to do some teaching along the way to use this checklist as a resource. So what we intended to do is, if you go back to the slide deck, we were going to have you go back to the course to take a look at the course and evaluate it for its accessibility of what the accessibility is. So instead of taking time to do that right now, let's just click on the video for a minute. When we click on the video, we're thinking about it.
Imagine you are given the task of teaching someone who knows nothing about American culture how to live and work in this society. It's your responsibility to make sure this stranger.
This was a quick accessibility check. It has a video embedded in it, and closed captioning is enabled. So we can enable that. Now, one of the things we've learned is that if we're using a Google Chrome browser, Google Chrome has accessibility already built into it for closed captioning. You can go to your advanced settings in Google Chrome and enable closed captioning, and anything on the screen that automatically starts playing video content-wise, your Google browser, your Google Chrome browser will automatically bring it up as closed captioning. So that checks the box that we have closed captioning on all of our YouTube content, and we have closed captioning enabled for other video content that might not have it embedded already. So this is just one of the little areas that we're talking about for accessibility, so that if teachers provide and create instructional videos, when they upload those videos, we like them to be uploaded into a YouTube channel so that you can turn on closed captioning in YouTube. If they're not using YouTube, what other video might they do? They might do a screencastify and enable closed captioning in the screencastify, for example. So that's one spot check. Another spot check would be the image. So when we hover over an image and click on an image, is alternate text defined out of that image? So notice that when I click on the key terms, the key, and there's an image here, if I click on this particular image defining sociology, notice that the image opens up, and under the image, we should see some alt text identified. That's just an example of looking for our images embedded with alt text as an accessibility feature. So that one's not showing alt text, so we would score it lower because we don't see alt text embedded on this. So if you look back at the slide deck, the two resources that we have here for you, the sample accessibility checklist, as well as a course to be able to use and learn more about accessibility. It is something we must pay attention to when building online courses, particularly if we're building these courses to be delivered asynchronously in a district cyber academy, for example. So now we're going to go on to the next resource for you to take a look at, and it's the final resource that we have for you today. So looking at this resource, which resource provides support for the following? We'll want you to go into the chat to be able to list the number that this corresponds to. So which one's the national organization that provides support resources for collaboration and communication for district cyber academies and online learning communities? So out of our list of 6 items, which is the one that's left, which one's left for us to be able to access? Tell you, Ben's so quick, he did it again. So absolutely. So notice that what we're talking about here is the distance learning collaborative. And we want to show you the distance learning collaborative because we want you to realize that it's really important to connect to some of our national organizations who are providing support and resources across the board for districts who are implementing a district cyber academy. So you see that this is the distance learning collaborative that is bringing together educators, third-party providers, and supporters all across the United States. And they're providing publications for us to use. They're providing updates of practices and policies. And they're also providing webinar series that's available for us that are running district online cyber academies. They also have their own conference called DLAC. That's the National Digital Learning Annual Conference that's this year in Atlanta in February. As an organization, IU13, we use the Lancaster Lebanon Virtual Solutions as our support for all our districts to support them in their district cyber academies. And we are a premier member of the Distance Learning Collaborative because we found it very beneficial to be able to work on a national level so that we stay current with everything that's going on to support online and hybrid learning across the United States and globally so that we can really stay connected. These professional learning opportunities in the Distance Learning Collaborative, they have many member webinars and non-member webinars that are free of charge for districts to be able to connect to and be able to participate. So for example, if you want to learn more about accessibility, check out one of their webinars on accessibility. If you want to look about how are we including social emotional learning in our district cyber academy, we can attend one of the discussions or one of the happy hour chats to talk about social emotional learning in our own district cyber academy and our own offerings. So you see there's many resources here that they provide, that it's a great resource to connect to be able to learn more and connect with others who are doing similar work as you are with your district cyber academy.
So you can see by just some of the resources that we provided to you that this can be very difficult for districts to start to enter into this world of evaluating online learning. So what we've done at IU13 is just this past year, if we started something we're calling the Enrich Virtual Forum. This Enrich Virtual Forum is bringing together some district stakeholders, whether they're virtual administrators, district administrators, online learning advisors, online learning teachers, and instructional technology specialists who are entering the world of blended learning and trying to make it the best possible experience for your students. So the Enrich Virtual Forum's mission is really to strengthen and grow your individual district virtual learning programs and services. So we've listed a few of the different topics that we discuss at monthly meetings. We have representatives from these different organizations come and speak to the resources that they provide. And we use this as a forum to discuss what's working and what's not working within individual districts. So just within IU13, here's a number of districts that you'll see who are currently part of our forum. We're always looking for new members to continue to add and grow to our list. We think the collective wisdom of all of our districts would benefit everyone as they share the resources and the programs that they're doing within their districts. Every district has their own way of reaching their virtual students, whether it's through the LLVS at IU13 or strictly within their own programs within their districts, whatever that may be, or however you reach those virtual students and families, we want this forum to benefit each individual district by growing them. And as we know from the last few years, these virtual options for students are going to be need to be made available to students as they've gotten a taste, whether they liked it or not, of what some online learning options could be for them as they work through the last few years.
And we really do use all of the resources that we shared with you in the Enrich Virtual Forum to help bring it together on a monthly basis to support our districts. So we're going to just pause for a moment to see if there's any questions that you would like to pose to the group with any of the resources that we shared today or any of the information that we shared before we wrap up our time together this afternoon. If you have any questions, you can feel free to pose the question directly in the chat, or feel free to unmute and come back online and let us know if you have any particular questions or comments. Absolutely. It does take time. We've given you a lot of resources with a lot of in-depth rubric information. So by having an access to the slide deck, everything's embedded in there that you can pull from the slide deck itself. So just to wrap up our time together, we have the IU13's Accelerated Learning website that we'll put in the chat for you as well. And this is going through our series all the way through for the different series, the webinar series of our different professional development webinars that are coming up throughout this year. So there's a calendar and the registration links for each one of those. So feel free to check those out. We are recording all of them and adding them to our YouTube channel if you can't get this specific 3:30 in the afternoon time slot. It is available for, Ben, the question was, is the monthly group you mentioned only for IU13 member districts? And no, we do are offering it outside of just IU13 districts. So we'll put our email address up for you that you can feel free to email so we can get you some more information about that. We are wanting to make sure that you know that you can have, or you will receive Act 48 credit for this live virtual session. So the Act 48 evaluation is on Frontline. So where you registered to be able to attend today, you'll go back to that. We'll mark your attendance complete, and you'll need to complete the Act 48 evaluation directly in Frontline. And that's how we'll report your Act 48 credit for attending today. All our references are available for you to be able to check out, that we put in one document and on our references side for you as well. And all of our accelerated learning resources from the Pennsylvania Department of Education are available for you to be able to access and use. Again, a lot of great resources for you to access. So we thank you so much for joining us today for ensuring the quality of online and hybrid courses. For more information about this session or any of our additional ones, please feel free to reach out directly to us at one of our email addresses. Folks, thanks so much for joining us today, and we wish you a great rest of your day. Take care.